Hi, I'm Dr. Gwyn Erwin, and welcome back to my channel, Healing for Your Life. This is video C of Domain 5 for organizing for the creative process. And this video is on multiple projects. Now, a lot of people get very scrambled by multiple projects. And you'll often hear, I have too much to do. I can't even figure out where to start next. There is a science to organizing multiple projects, one that is hard won, but you can learn it. And I have learned it, and it has stood me in very, very good stead. So a lot of this I've created myself. I've borrowed ideas from other people, had a lot of conversations about it, and learned mostly from experience. But one of the ways that I learned about managing multiple projects was in art school years ago when I went to art school. And in working with the different mediums of oils, acrylics, watercolor, charcoal, pastels, pencil, and ink, each of those has its own time frame. Oils take a very long time because you don't want to muddy your canvas. And so if it's too wet and you haven't let the canvas dry between applications, you're going to lose your painting. Pastels are very quick. Pen and ink can be even quicker unless you're doing very fine detailed work. Watercolors compared to acrylics or oils are also a quick medium. One of my favorite forms of painting was the glazing method used by the old masters, and I learned that in art school. A wonderful art school, by the way, which does exist on the West Coast, called Mission Renaissance, that was started by Larry Gluck. And you learn by using the techniques of the old masters. And glazing is a very particular technique, and it's a particular medium. So briefly, you start out with a tonal painting, which means that the painting is all in black and white and gray tones. So that's going to be your main painting to begin with, rather than painting in color. Once that painting is solidly dry, and that takes some time, of course, to do a finished tonal painting. I mean, it's really finished. Like you wouldn't have to apply color to it. It could be a finished painting on its own. So you've gone through a whole process with that. You apply the colors one at a time in layers over the painting, and you go from light to dark. So you might start with a primary color of yellow, and you're going to use a glazing medium, and it goes over the entire canvas. Then you're going to apply another color once that's thoroughly dry as the original painting, and you keep adding layers and layers and layers of color, but as you go, they will be in smaller and smaller areas because you won't necessarily want it over the entire canvas. So one of my favorite paintings that I did had 25 layers of paint, but it didn't look like that at all. It looked like stained glass, and even though there were vivid colors, areas of color, you could see through all of these layers of color the beauty and the depth that was there. Now that one painting took me easily 8 months to do. I did another oil painting that was a large canvas that has 6 pounds of paint on it. That's huge. And it was after Turner's Storm at Sea, and I used his techniques. That painting took just as long because the paint had to dry thoroughly in between applications, and there was so much of it, and it had to be so thick in certain spots. So while those paintings are drying and in between the stages of them, you could do a pastel in one day. You could do a charcoal in an afternoon. You could start one painting, which we're going to get to in a minute. This is about types of projects right now. But you want to have a long-term project or several long-term projects. So these are your types of projects. You want to have medium length of time projects, and then you want to have briefer time projects, so that as one project is in a certain phase of development, you have another project in another phase of development that is moving along, and then if you need to spell yourself from working on those, you've got a quicker project that you could work on. So creative people like variety, not haphazardness, but variety. And so if you're working over the course of a year on multiple projects, you want to have different types of projects, and you want them to be in different stages. So we're going to get to that next. So in terms of types of projects, for a writer, for instance, you might be working on a book. You might also write essays, or you might write short stories, or you might write op-eds, or you might write articles, or you might write a booklet. For a gardener, you might be planting seasonally, and those take a while to grow. At the same time, you might be making microgreens, every few days, or herbs that can grow in a week or two. So you want different types of projects that require different elements from you. So that's the basis of multiple projects. And instead of dreading all these projects, look at it as a playground, that it's an opportunity for enhanced creativity, because you can work both in different mediums and in different types of projects within those mediums. Next are stages of projects. And when you're juggling multiple projects, you may have one or two at the same stage, but you hope not many more than that. So you want to have one or two or three projects in their finishing stages. You want to have one, perhaps two, in the thick of the heavy work of it. You may want to have some that are just at the beginning of the project, and you may have some that are in the embryonic stage, or even before that, kind of a wish stage. This is something I'd like to do someday. So you could have a master project list, which I have, and I probably have 50 substantial projects on there. Now, my YouTube channel is one of them, and I have enough individual videos, I think, to film for about 4 years every week without having to come up with new ideas. By the time I get there, I'll have all kinds of other new ideas. So there are many aspects to a project, but you want to have, like today I'm filming. Friday night I'll edit a video. Over the weekend I'll finish it on YouTube and post it. I'm working on 2 books. They're both kind of in similar stages, which is finishing the proposal for the publishers. So I'm kind of finishing those simultaneously, and it works out because as I get ideas, they're similar enough in terms of the basic material that I can go back and forth and kind of enrich one and the other. I've got one book that I'm actually in the throes of working heavily on, and I have another in the beginning stages. So you want to have different stages of your projects. It adds spice, it adds variety. You can move back and forth between them. It's really interesting that when you get stuck somewhere, you think, ooh, just don't know quite what to do next. You take a shower, you come out, maybe an idea will bubble up. You work on another project and suddenly you think, oh, I know what to do with that, okay? Bookmark where I am with this, go back and finish that. And it's a very exciting, iterative, and creative process to move back and forth. It also, if you know the stage of your projects, you will know where you need to plan for your time and energy. Because if you're in the stage of heavy writing or heavy planting or heavy painting or heavy woodworking, then you just want to devote a little bit of time to beginning something to breathe life into it. And you may want to devote a bit more time to doing some polishing. So it helps you plan your time and energy as well to know what stage you're in any projects and what you want to do next. The last part of this is your prioritizing. Now, prioritizing often has to do with deadlines, either chosen or imposed. The imposed are sometimes much more demanding, but even your chosen ones are demanding. What is it that has the most meaning to you? And this loops around to kind of the beginning about projects. What is meaningful to me? What is important about it to me? Prioritizing can be a movable feast. So you can take something that's been on the back burner and say, you know, somebody really wants me to get this done, so I'm going to move it to a front burner. And then what's been on the front burner is going to have to go on the warmer. And you can move things around a bit that way. Something that's been in the background may move to the foreground because you have new ideas about it and new energy for it, or a new deadline. If you're the one who sets the prioritizing, then you have a lot more autonomy unless you suddenly get a sale, or unless a gallery owner calls and says, yes, we have room for your show next April, and now you've got 4 months instead of 8 months to plan for it. So figure out the priorities of your projects, but leave room for that to be something of a movable feast. Now, there are 2 more elements that I want to talk about in this video, if I can get it all in. One is organizing a single project within multiple projects. So you need a place for holding. And we talked about this earlier in another video. Holding means active storage where your multiple projects can reside when you're not working on them, so that you can get to them very easily. So again, maybe those blueprint drawers or something like that, so that your materials don't have to get all packed up and then, you know, brought back out again, and you're wasting precious time instead of having your project available to you. You want to keep things in safekeeping so that nothing valuable about your projects get lost. You also want to have a tracking system, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. You want to have a retrieval system, so bookmark where you are in any one project when you stop working on it, so you know exactly where to begin when you pick it back up and can get going. Don't come back to an empty mind or a blank canvas unless you're starting a new painting. But if you're in the midst of a project, stop in the middle somewhere of a sentence or an area of the painting so that you know where you want to come back to. Retrieval is key to keep projects moving. And you want to be able to look forward to your projects. And if you create a good holding environment for them, keep elements that you need to keep safe, that you can track them and have a retrieval system, you won't dread your projects, even if maybe you dread a lack of energy. But again, if you're using time and energy management well, hopefully you'll feel supported by those systems that you put in place. Now, lastly, we're going to talk about tracking multiple projects. And this is sometimes very difficult. You can use Asana for this. You could use intervals. That's another project planning system. You could use a Gantt sheet or Excel. But you need, for me, I need a map. And it needs to be both linear in terms of calendaring deadlines and milestones, but it also needs to be dynamic in terms of, oh, this is the stage I'm in with this project. Gosh, I haven't had a month to work on this, and now I need to come back to it. Where was I? You want to be able to retrieve where you were. So I use a project map, which I've featured in another video, but it's a photo of that is in my free downloadables. You can use a corkboard or something like that, or you could use an app that has sticky notes or index cards. There's an index card app where you can rearrange your index cards. But these are the elements that you want to see so you don't flounder in the playground of your multiple projects. You need to see a way to see all the titles of your projects. And so you can identify what project you're working on. It doesn't have to be your final title, but it needs to be a good, solid working title that is evocative enough that you know exactly what that project is. You need a way to see, so that would be a horizontal line perhaps, so project A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then you need a way to see visually all the action steps required for each project or for the sections of projects. So that would be a vertical look under each title. And that can include the stages. You could have embryonic or beginning stage. You could have hard working through stage. You could have iteration stage or brainstorming stage. You could have finishing stage. And the action steps within each of those stages. And then you want to be able to flag where you are in any one of those stages. Let's say that you've finished the embryonic stage and you have finished the brainstorming stage, and now you're in the heavy workload part of the project. But you want to be able to flag where you are in that. So you either use sticky flags or pins with the heads of them of different colors that you know what those pins mean. But you want to know where you are in those action steps and then what you need, where you need to go next. Most importantly, and this is the difficult thing, is tracking the ebbs and flows of all of your projects together on some kind of calendar so that you can see where the peaks and valleys are. Where are the demands? You don't want to be in January and suddenly in April see that you've got the heaviest workload, the peak of your working life in 5 projects at once. You also don't want to suddenly see in June you've got to finish up 4 projects at once. So you want to see on a large calendar or on your computer with Asana or some other program that's close enough, the ebbs and flows, so that you can print out kind of a report and over the course of time see all of these projects and how they are moving and what stages that they're in, so that you don't get bottled up in having not enough to do at one point and far too much to do in another. So that's it for this series of organizing for the creative life, the creative process. I do have this book that all this material has come from. It is for sale on my website. Please go to it. Be happy to send it to you once you purchase it. It's got all of this material in it, so if you didn't get all that you wanted to from notes, it's available right here at a reasonable price. And it makes a great Christmas gift or birthday gift or anytime gift for any creative in your life. And I will see you in our next videos, and thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was as helpful as I intended it to be. Thanks. Bye.